Let's do it live on a First Friday Miracle edition of the program. Merely Bo, the Great Z. How you living, buddy?
Well,
you were on.
I was on.
You were on, and you couldn't tell.
I have no idea anymore.
I hate that.
Even
That's
from
shame.
the tap.
Shame.
It's a
now a tap. You're not getting.
Now
it.
we truly need a light.
Well, we're told that that's in the works.
I don't think that made the final budget.
Come on.
It's a thing that integrates with our current system and is pretty easy, as I was told.
I think Drew is on it.
I'm sure he is. I'm
Drew
sure
Dutton
last
is on
week
it.
he was in Fort Lauderdale, this week Vegas. Yeah, he's got it all covered, all right.
There's a luminary who could get something like that done.
That's a large L.
The big, well, not right there though.
Right there.
Right there.
He's on that tier. That's
There's
for sure.
no question. If you're tiering the luminaries, that's the top tier luminary there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought I was under the impression that Drew Dutton was going to get you your button. I thought that's where he was going to go.
Poet, you don't even know it. I thought Drew Dutton was going to get me my button.
That's
You're darn right. I thought so too.
And not happening.
Apparently not.
Happening. All right. Well, that's sad. You hate to see it. You hate to see it.
I don't know. Gibbe is sometimes Gibbe can be a thief of joy. So we don't know if he's just being a thief of joy for fun, or if he's.
I have no idea. I don't know what the budget even looks like.
So yeah, so
it says head honcho in there.
So you immediately come in and are the mayor of Negative Town.
Yeah. Well, we were supposed to get some other things, and I know that those have been nixed.
Oh,
so
for God's sakes! I mean, you're in there. With
I'm just going to assume that those were almost a lower priority, and they got nixed. So
I feel like these are priority one.
I just want to know how Drew's doing. It's been a rough couple weeks for him in Fort Lauderdale and in Vegas. Real rough.
Well, I'm going to tell you.
Last week, 14 inches of rain.
Yeah, I was going to say, South Florida, not great.
He didn't have the time.
The last week, I'm guessing.
He didn't have what he was looking for.
And now he's in Las Vegas?
Yeah.
What's going on out there?
That's the NAB convention, I believe, or the Radio TV Technical Convention.
Is out, and he's in that?
Yeah. He and Connor. What could go wrong?
Connor with a K?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What could go wrong there?
Nothing. Sad that Tequila Fila didn't get to make the trip.
I think it's probably better for Tequila Fila's liver that he didn't make that trip.
True.
His commitment to the mustache is awesome, and the reason for it is even better. So I'm a big fan of that kid. He just brings joy. I saw him beginning of the week and was thrilled just to be around and to be part of his presence.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. So at that thing, that's where you'd find the buttons. Would be at a place like where they are.
Yeah. That's what he showed me. That's what he documented it. He said it works. Here, can I give you the quote?
Please read. Give me the quote.
So he sends it, and it's a on-off flight, and it says, it might be closer than you think. I said on-off, let's go. He goes, it's basically plug and play with our current setup, something we can add it once we get back in the studio following the renovation.
Well, that seems like it's done then. I think done.
That was said on Monday.
Yeah, I think it's a done deal.
I love how it's been communicated to you, but not to me.
Well, because he knows that he understands those who have the zest for this and then those who don't.
Who will put roadblocks in front of it.
The last thing that I want to do is continue to listen to the Queen over here complain every day about his on-off button.
This is 2023, Gibbe. I don't think you can make such insults.
Queen Elizabeth was a regal gal.
Yeah. Also had a corgi just like me.
Many corgis.
She did.
Many corgis. Yeah. Did you watch that show, The Crown? Did you watch that on the Netflix? Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Also, I was
not
watching,
great as humans.
No.
That operation.
It's tough. It feels like it's a kind of a tough scene.
But is it?
In there. I think it's probably a pretty nice scene, but there's parts of it that are probably pretty annoying.
Right, but I feel like they create a lot of their own nonsense.
Yeah, but those tabloids are in their business.
Yeah,
everything.
But that's the price of doing business, right? Like that's the one thing.
For some people who are born into it, though, you're just born into it. Like you didn't say,
this
is how I want.
Sign up for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if you do say, you know what, actually, I don't want this life. I'm not about this life. Then you're going to get crushed even more.
Too late.
Yeah. And crushed.
Too late. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was watching, though, Top Chef, big Top Chef fan. They're having World All-Stars. It's been awesome. And they are in London. And apparently the Queen has her own official grocery store. Which
that only she can go to, or that people, like she's
anybody
endorsed?
Can go there, and yes,
she's endorsed? She's endorsed. She does endorsements? I was unaware.
I don't think it's necessarily an endorsement as much as it probably is, and that's also where she does her. That's the only place that like her meals are sourced from this shop. All shopping that's done for the Queen is done here at this store.
Feels like that'd be a pretty good endorsement.
And it looked like the nicest grocery store I've ever seen, and it has like everything you want, every kind of caviar, fresh truffles that they shave for you right there. Like it knows no bounds. It looked pretty.
I got to tell you, as truffles go,
So, one, I've had some fresh shaved truffles in Croatia, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And they're quite cheap and very tasty.
Sure.
Truffles for like an exorbitant amount.
Like truffle oil, all that type of, and that stuff's that's hugely priced, and there's such a distinct flavor to it. It tastes to me like I'm eating earth.
So I'll just give a little.
That's fine. It's fine.
Listen, and taste,
all
taste is subjective.
Of course.
Exactly.
Just like when people come, what type of bourbon do you recommend? Well, I don't know. What are your tastes, man?
What do you like?
You tell me.
Give me the notes you're looking for. You're
Yeah,
looking for
tell me.
caramel. You're
Help
looking
me.
for some vanilla. You
I
want
can
some
help
toffee?
me help you.
Yeah. Do you want some grass? Not me. Some people do. Some people like the taste
Oh,
of
that peaty Scotch, man, will give you that.
They love some grass.
I
Burnt
love
grass.
that in there.
Gross.
Burnt grass, smoky grass.
Disgusting.
Terrible.
Like anytime there's a wine, and sometimes Pinots have this, especially from like Oregon and Washington State, and it'll be like, grassy earth notes. I'm like,
sorry.
out.
I'll see you on down the road, man.
No, and
Not for me.
For free, I could go lick the dirt out
Sure
there.
you
I
could.
eat some grass.
Yeah. The
You wanna
truffles
do
you
it?
were saying, you push back, little pushback.
Truff sauce. Have you had truff? The hot sauce?
I got a 3-pack of that as a Christmas.
And?
Would you like it?
Yeah.
I'll bring it in.
You didn't like it?
It didn't feel like anything I'd be into.
Oh, it's delicious.
Okay.
You throw a little of that.
I would
Truff
put
hot
that on
sauce.
like eggs, but I know you don't like
Okay,
eggs.
fine. It's delightful on a crab cake.
Okay.
You're making a little pesto ravioli with, say,
Little bit
some
of that.
lobster or some portobellos inside of that
Okay.
ravioli. You have a little truff on there. Oh, it is an elite sauce. The white one in particular is really elite.
So there's white, red, and black
Yeah,
is the three.
White is the best. Black is very, very good. And the red is more focused on heat than necessarily truffle. You'll still get the truffle flavor, but it's more about it's
Okay.
a hotter version.
All right. Yeah.
They're
I
all
got
good.
it. Maybe I'll give it a run.
No, keep it. I insist.
No, I'm not going to eat the hot one for sure. Like the extra hot one, I'm definitely not eating because I don't like stuff that hot.
So I keep white and red in my house at all times.
Okay. Well, you're going to get a nice little gift pack then. I'm going to bring it in. You can have
First time I ever got it was from Santa himself. And I was
I'm like, it's next best thing.
Santa nailed it. Yeah. Got the beard.
Yeah. Closer cropped.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Here's what I got for you. Let me run this by you.
Okay.
Can you tell me why? So there's a story on ESPN right now on the NFL page.
Okay.
The Panthers general manager didn't tell Bryce Young he'll be the number 1 pick.
Okay.
There's no way they're still deciding.
It feels doubtful, but if you recall, when we had the number 1 pick at this time,
This the Miles or
this
the
is
Baker?
the friend of Dorsey,
Yeah.
was saying Josh Allen. There was even some Darnold talk. It wasn't until the week of the draft,
Yeah.
that Monday or Tuesday of that week, that it became Baker Mayfield.
And the reaction to that, I remember having lunch with Omar Ruiz of the NFL Network right over here at the Depot,
Yeah.
who I've known for years. And it was on the day where that started to come out, and we were like, really? Are we sure? Like,
Yeah.
this is where this is going to go. But when do you think the full Dorse knew that he was taking Baker?
I think
I don't remember us asking him that.
no. And if you recall, we had also that at that time
And at that point, I wasn't
Scott
with you.
McLuhan-
'Cause I
Scott
wasn't
Mc-
with you
right.
until
after he'd been
until
drafted.
August of that year. So I wasn't doing the show.
So what were you doing at the Depot?
I was doing Columbus here.
Oh, right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So that's but that's how that happened. That's why I was
Scott
there. and that's
McLuhan
when
was here.
So I was here, but I wasn't doing the show.
Sure.
I would fill in. You'd be gone. I'd pop in with Wilhelm, and we would do it. But I
Yeah.
didn't. I wasn't doing the show every day at that point.
And look at us now.
And look at us now, buddy. Lo these many years later.
And so many more to come.
But the Baker thing. But Baker was like that. So, and I don't remember. So did you ask Dorse? Like, when did you know? I'm sure you did. Do you recall his answer? Like, when did you know it was Baker?
They acted, yes, and I recall after the fact that it was always Baker, and they went on this visit to Oklahoma, and he was like a Pied Piper. Hugh had said
I remember that story, yeah.
I know Scott McLuhan thought he was Brett Favre, and so McLuhan was huge on him, and he was in our organization at that time. So I do think that they were – I think they probably knew in advance, but it's been a long time since – let's go to the Trevor Lawrence draft. At what point was it publicly stated that the Jags were
They
going to
didn't.
They didn't.
Remember, they even waited like 8 minutes on the draft night.
So
and
that's why
they did say that was about the television partners. Were like, hey, don't wreck this for us. Like, let us have a little something here.
So that's
in the meantime, the pushback would be, it's Trevor Lawrence. Like, he was going to be the number one pick from the time he was a freshman in college when he won the national title with Clemson. They beat Alabama out in the Bay Area. So, like, there was no doubt around it.
Yeah.
I just think it's an interesting thing. Like, Carolina has to know. Tepper's been on every one of these meetings. He's gone on every one of these visits. He's gone to the pro days. They've had these kids in. 2 weeks ago it felt like it was Stroud. Now it all feels like it's Young. But that's all just perception on the outside. It feels like in the building you'd know at this point.
Yep.
Like you've done it all. All the work's been done.
In my mind, they know, and you and I have both on the record said if we were running a team that had the number one pick and we had somebody that we coveted, we'd be like, this is who we're taking.
So we're taking.
Deal with it. Now the
how
draft
about
starts at 2.
Yeah.
Well, how about it? And I'm not gonna waste 1 second at TV. You're gonna go there and we're gonna know who I'm taking at number 1.
Yeah.
And there it is. My guess is their fear is that, well, then number 2 now has a number 1 pick. So if they're saying they're taking Bryce Young, why can't they be like, well, we're going to take C.J. Stroud? And then,
sure, then the whole draft
and
happens.
then all of a sudden the draft is announced before the draft happens.
And that happened. That was something that always happens in the NBA draft. They tried to put a gag order on that because Woj would always tip the picks on social, him and Shams. Yeah, I understand. I mean, you're making a television show, but it feels like they. I guess at the root of it, it's like, do they know? That's kind of the thing that I think is pretty interesting. My hunch is that they probably do. You were out. Were you out when I pressed Gibby? Yeah, you were, because I was pressing Gibby on this. You just illustrated like how big of a deal the draft television is. That
Totally.
Part of it.
Yep.
The idea that this league has not done a draft lottery is one of the more remarkable, stupefying things I mean, you put this sucker on the Saturday of the championship games or in the Super Bowl pregame. You do it. Heck, you could do it on its own night. On a Monday night, you could do this type of thing. It would be huge.
We also discussed Monday of Combine Week.
Monday of Combine Week. There's a lot of ways to do it, and it's just a no-brainer. It's easy content. It would be of huge interest, and it would also prevent what happened with the Colts and the Texans. Like, that type of game would not matter nearly as much if there was a weighted lottery system. So, for example, in the NHL, if you have the worst record in the NHL, you have a 25% chance of picking number 1. Now, you can't pick lower than 3rd, so you're picking 1, 2, or 3.
Yep.
But it's a 25% chance is all you get of picking 1. That's awesome. That is awesome.
You like that?
I love it. I love the theater behind it.
I'd like it to be like 33%. I feel like if you're the worst, you should have a 1 in 3 shot at it.
Well,
that's
that's
50-50.
That's what we do here, right? Like, we engineer everything to the middle.
Yeah.
That's the idea of the draft, of the NFL draft. If you're bad, you pick high, and you can get back to the middle quickly, and then hopefully to the top. But
I think that you would have had. I'm going to take this a step further. I think the Texans and Colts did your quest a disservice the way that they performed in the last week. Had both of them refused to score, and the game ended literally because a punter decided to run out of the end zone for a safety, and that's how they were able to secure the number 1 spot. Where the Texans, like, their punter ran out, and they lost 2-0 at the end of the game, and that's how they lost. And that got them number pick. I think that
Lovie Smith went rogue.
You'd have a chance to have real discussions about this.
Regardless of however you think about it, in a league where give us more money, give us more interesting content, this provides it.
The other thing they need to do is go to if you are going to do a lottery, there's got to be a cap. Like, if you are the worst, like, maybe you can only go down 2 spots from where you finished.
Well, that's how the NHL thing is. Like, if you're worst, you can't draft lower than 3rd.
Yep.
Second worst can't draft lower than 4th.
Yeah, I like that.
So like,
I'm fine.
You're not dropping. You're not going to if you go
So
1 in
there's
16, you're not picking 12.
Yeah.
Like you're picking 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're just not necessarily picking one.
Yeah.
And I think that adds some intrigue to it.
Adds a little intrigue. I'd almost, in the NFL, because of how important one spot is, because I think it's very different than any other sport, because in hockey, yes, the center is probably the best or most valuable, but all positions are valuable. The quarterback is so far above everything else that I think in the NFL, you'd almost have to cap it at one spot. So, like, you're first, the worst you can do is 2, but being 2 when you want to be first in the NFL is a massive deal.
When the NHL has a generational player like they have this year, and he's a center in this case, but there's been wingers who have been this for any forward is usually this type of guy. They never take a defenseman. There's never like tank for a defenseman. It's always tanks for the next Crosby, Gretzky, Lemieux, that type of thing. It's much same. Very much like I think the NHL is more closely aligned with the NBA.
Sure, right.
When it comes to like one player, like this Wembanyama thing, like this is going to be a big deal. Although 7'2", 166 pounds doesn't feel like a
LeBron was
for
a big
success.
deal when he was the first.
Yeah,
but I'm saying every year in the NFL draft, it feels, or every 2 years, being first or second is vastly different.
Yeah, but I also think that what we've seen in the last 10, 15 years in the NBA, in the NFL rather, has been a lessening of drafting a quarterback number 1 and them hitting. I mean, look at the quarterbacks drafted number 1 who have played for multiple teams and pretty quickly. Quarterbacks taken in the top 5. We don't have the wait. We're not waiting on quarterbacks anymore. Like if you haven't delivered pretty quickly, they bounce. Look at Darnold. Look at Bake. Look at Winston. Look at Mariota. I mean, there's so many guys all drafted in the top 5 that would have gotten 6, 7 years in the old days.
Second place, but he's always played.
Right, he's always played. But Wentz has been all over the place. Like he was the second pick. Like, I mean, what happens in the NFL because of the importance of position is you force quarterbacks.
Yes.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
Like a year ago at this time, and you're coming off of one of the worst quarterback drafts of all time, the Pickett, Willis. Like we haven't had one that bad where there's one first-round pick. Usually there's several. But you were looking at this class, you're going, that's a pretty good class, young Stroud, but everyone was pointing towards the next one, the May Williams one next year. But by the time you get to this, you're talking yourself into Levis and Richardson both being top 5 picks.
So, again, I'll be curious to see how that actually plays out, if that is actually real. Because, remember, last year coming out of the Combine, who's going to trade up to get Malik Willis? The guy went in the 3rd round. He went in the 3rd round. So, I'm with you. I like the thing. I'm fine capping it at 1 spot, 2 spots. 1 spot to me is even fine because there's still the drama. So, you go for the first pick. If you didn't get it, now you know that's the top 2 and somebody leapfrogged up, so that's interesting. Then whoever's 3rd, you'd have them go, and if they don't stay at 3rd, they go to 4th, and somebody jumps in. It still would vary the order, and you'd have to watch every ball, whether it's 1 pick slide or 2 pick slides. It really doesn't matter. But I'm fine with it. I also think they got to go. I love the idea of a team getting a bye in the playoffs. I do.
Real quick, last thing on the lottery. You have to have the ability, if you are someone who's like the 7th best team, and even if it's a minuscule percentage, a percentage chance to go all the way to 1.
Yes,
you have to be able to. Everybody would have the chance to go to 1. It would just be incredibly weighted for the teams at the bottom.
I think you have to have 16 teams in the playoffs, 8 in each conference. Byes are over with, and then you've got those 16 that aren't. Juan Thornhill strolling through.
There he is.
New safety.
Number 1.
Cleveland Browns. Number one. Luminaries just piling up the stairs.
One after another. They're all here.
Another. Look at them.
Luminary there. Luminary there.
You want a luminary?
That's his new route, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of. Yeah.
I think it's more when the big L's are here.
I believe you have that.
Yeah.
The here, this would be ideal. If I could do anything in the NFL schedule, I'm with you. 8 in each, 16 team, eliminate the bye, and then I would just go back to 16 games.
That's fine. And I would also
get rid of and do 2 preseason and you're out.
There's a way that the 16th team would get 1 ball. Maybe 15 gets 2 balls, 3 balls, and so on until you. But the deck would be if you were first in my world, they get like 50% of the balls. Like 16th gets literally a ball. Maybe even 16, 15, 14, 13, 12 get
just
a ball.
Minuscule.
Yeah, like 1 ball.
But there's got to be a chance for them to move, and there even should be a chance for you to go from 16 to 10.
Sure.
You know, you got to be able to move up a little
ball's
bit.
Ball's
wherever it goes, it's in the mix.
Likely you're going to pick 16.
Very likely. But
highly.
You want a little bit of drama there, and I think it would provide it.
I'm in.
Where are you, as a man who went to a fine private school such as yourself, we were talking about Young and the quarterback stuff and the draft and all of the.
I thought you were talking about Steve.
Your boy.
No.
All of the inexact science around it. What percentage? Let's do the Wedding Crashers, nature versus nurture lodge. Nature always wins.
Okay.
How much of a quarterback's success is their own talent, and how much of it is the nurturing and the position they're put into?
Allow me to answer your question with a question.
Oh.
If a quarterback doesn't have the requisite talent, can they be successful?
No, of course. You have to have the of course. You have got to be you got to be a dude.
I think that it is probably, if we're assuming that someone has the baseline talent to be an average NFL starter as the baseline, and then within that sphere, you have super generationals, Mahomes-ish type players. I think Mahomes, it still is possible that even Patrick Mahomes could be derailed by situation. You throw him on the expansion Texans like David Carr, I don't know what Pat Mahomes is. I think it is very easy to be enhanced by situation. So I do think that in the NFL, your situation, your coaching, all of that is probably as important as your talent. Now, there is certain talent that can lift up and look, I mean,
speaking of
generational.
Yep. All right. In simplest terms, can any level of talent, can the highest level of talent overcome a complete failure in nurturing?
So
and I would argue probably not.
Here, I'm going to give you, here's what I'm going to say. Okay? 59% completions, 12 touchdowns, 17 picks, quarterback rating of 71.
Okay.
67% completions, 25 touchdowns, 8 picks, quarterback rating of 95.2.
Mm-hmm.
That's Trevor Lawrence. Year one,
year two.
Nature.
Yeah.
Nurture. That's nurture.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. That's a perfect example of it.
Yes.
You could also give another one would be the situations that Justin Fields has found himself in versus the situation that Jalen Hurts has found himself in.
Fair.
Because if you say, if the Eagles somehow ended up with Fields, would Fields get this contract like Hurts did? My hunch is more likely than not he would have. He was viewed unanimously as a better passer.
Here's the variable to that we don't know. Mm-hmm. And the issue when you watch the tape of Justin Fields or when you talk to people who have watched significant amount, like a Greg Cosell, is that his biggest issue seems to be processing. It seems to be reading defenses, knowing where to go with the football, and then delivering it.
But is that a product of the situation that he's been in and a lack of trust in his offensive line, a lack of trust in the receivers catching the ball, and a lack of trust in who's calling the plays, who you will recall his first year was Matt Nagy, who sent him to slaughter here. That was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in the NFL. That was malfeasance. Compared to Hurts, who has been nurtured, built around, trust us. I mean, remember what Hurts was when he first started there. I mean, it was a one read and go situation. Like, they built towards this. Now, Hurts put in the work, but they also drafted around him. They traded for A.J. Brown. They got Devonta Smith. They could run it. They got the best offensive line, one of the 2-3 best offensive lines in football. Like, I don't have an answer for it. I just think it's interesting when you have the conversation about what's the percentage point.
Well,
because
what's Brock Purdy like if he's playing last year for
I'm tight. I like Fields
Carolina.
a lot. He's one of my favorite players to ever play at Ohio State. We know that.
Yes.
When that draft came around, begging for Kyle.
Yeah.
Please. Like, and if he is there, I think he's great. And I think you're having the type of conversations you're having around Hurts if he's there.
The thing that's wild to me about Kyle passing on him is that, and Kyle's offense makes it very simple for the quarterback, is that in my mind Kyle had to feel, because there's no doubt that he was more polished, more proven, perhaps even more talented than Trey Lance.
Yeah.
That Kyle had to feel like that he was not capable of operating his offense effectively.
He clearly did. I mean, there's no other reason for it.
I would even say when you look at certain quarterbacks, even in our system, for example, like when we had Baker in certain situations was able to be very, very effective. But there were other times where he didn't see the things that, you needed for this offense to be fully effective. And so part of the things that's limited him is not arm talent. It's not leadership. It's ability to read defenses, process what's going on, and then throw yourself into the solution out of it. Every coverage has a spot where the ball should go and so on and so forth. So I don't know. Do I think that Fields was a more highly regarded prospect than Jalen Hurts coming out? Obviously. I don't think there's any question. Now, Jalen Hurts seems to be some type of a special human being from a leadership standpoint, from his strength and superhuman feats. Like, everybody seems to love him. There's never been – and I don't know that anybody said anything about Fields.
Fields would be similar. I mean, he was universally beloved at Ohio State from a character standpoint, leadership, all of that. Like, Justin Fields went on the Today Show to help save the Big Ten when the commissioner tried bailing on the league. And like he had that type of juice to him to be able to do it. I think there's a lot of parallels between the two of them. Fields is a far more accomplished quarterback at Ohio State than Jalen Hurts ever was at Alabama. Hurts had a really good year at Oklahoma, but it was primarily as a runner. I think he ran for 1,200 yards at Oklahoma that one season.
He went in the second round. It was kind of a shocking pick at the time.
Yeah.
No, I think
when you think about these guys in this spot that they're all in, and you think about going number one, if you have to have the minimum talent to be able to play, but I don't know that there's any level of talent that can overcome a poor management of that talent.
Yeah, like if you're looking at the places that could draft.
Conversely, if you have the baseline minimum to be quarterback in the league and the proper nurturing, you can have a ton of success. Look at Brock Purdy.
That's what I say. Brock Purdy. You put Brock Purdy on Carolina last year, Houston last year.
That's why I think when we talk about like Darnold in San Francisco, we're going, boy.
It's a decent
there's a
piece
talent
of clay.
level there.
Yes, there's a decent piece of clay. No doubt.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
You're totally right. And that's why I pulled up Trevor Lawrence's stats. I mean, that's Trevor Lawrence is Trevor Lawrence.
Yes. But they almost wrecked him.
That almost ruined him.
And the Khan family at least was smart enough to say, we've got to stop this.
Yes.
Is Dane up next? A little bit of Dane Brugler up next on The Athletic? A little bit of the Beast is coming?
Yeah, we got to go to break here because we got to get to him on time.
Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. New way to cheer on your Cleveland Browns, the help of your favorite four-legged companion, Barking Backers, presented by Milk-Bones, the Browns' newest club for pet parents worldwide. Sign up today at barkingbackers.com. Barking Backers, your fan club for dogs. He is one of the premier draft analysts. He is our resident draft guru. It is that time. The beast is out. We have mock drafts out. He's the great Dane Brugler of The Athletic. He joins us on the Twisted Tea hotline, brought to you by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of the Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. Dane, thanks so much for taking the time. But let's just start before we get into specifics on. I mean, we're not picking until the third round, so a lot of variables here from our perspective. When you think of this draft in totality, where does it stack up with recent drafts, and what are the strengths and weaknesses positionally in this draft?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you grade a draft overall, I think it really you have to do position by position, because some positions are stronger than others. Some positions are deeper than others. I mean, you take wide receiver, for example. The number one wide receiver this year might have been the 7th wide receiver drafted last year. And so it's not a top-heavy group this year, but there's still talent to be had in that late first, into day 2. Quarterback obviously commands all the attention, all the talk, and rightfully so. We're going to see 4 go pretty early, including Bryce Young, number 1 of the Panthers, and then the intrigue really starts there with Houston at 2. Do they take a quarterback? Do they pass? Do they trade? A lot of intrigue there. This is a deep running back group. You know, Bijan Robinson from Texas is going to be somewhere in those top 20, 25 picks, one of the best talents in this draft. But it's a deep running back group. We're going to see a run of those guys in the 3rd round, even into the 4th round. I'm going to feel good about the running backs that will be available that early day 3. So I think overall, you know, I think it's a pretty deep group on day 2. So, you know, the Browns having 2 third-round picks, I think they feel pretty good about the guys that could be available for them there. Day 3 is, I think, a little thin. Now, certain positions will stretch a little bit, but overall, I think it's more of a thin day 3 type of draft, which could make for some surprises at that point. But you know, once you get to day 3, all bets are off, anyways. Always some surprises there.
All right, Dane, let's talk about some of the positions that the Browns we think could be interested in. And in your 7-round mock, which is an unbelievable labor of love coming off of the beast itself, you have the defensive line be the focus of both picks. Gervin Dexter, the defensive tackle out of Florida, and then Yaya Diaby, did I say that right? Out of Louisville at the edge spot. So let's just kind of live in that 3rd round there. You mocked it out, so that was, in your mind, obviously the best defensive tackle for the Browns. Browns fans, who should they be looking for in that 3rd round? And let's start with the defensive tackle position. Who are some of the names? And, you know, there was a guy out of Wisconsin. Is it Benton? I feel like maybe.
Yep, Keanu Benton.
Yeah, that's somebody that I know. I've heard, you know, the Browns could be interested in him. What are the names kind of, and who do you like in that 3rd round? Who's kind of like your home run scenario for the Browns if it's a defensive tackle? And then how did you end up on Dexter for the Browns there at 74?
Yeah, and obviously a lot depends on what happens with those first 73 picks, and it's always tough to project that if you're a team like the Browns and you're waiting and you're crossing your fingers that this guy is going to fall or that guy. A lot of teams need defensive tackle help, and so it's going to be interesting which defensive tackles make it all the way through. A guy like Keanu Benton, you know, he's going to be. There's a lot of teams in that 2nd round that could use you know, a guy that's 6'4", 310 pounds. Interchangeable. You know, he's a nose tackle for Wisconsin, but he's interchangeable. You want him to play the 3 over the B gap. You want him to play more of a nose or play more of a 1 technique. He can do that as well. He has the power. He's a former heavyweight high school wrestler, state runner-up, but he has quickness to him. We saw that during Senior Bowl practices, during one-on-ones, where he was able to win with quickness, win with his hands. So I think he has, when you just look at the athleticism, you look at the power, he has the foundational traits to come in and be a strong part of a rotation. He was off the board in my mock draft that I did, but Dexter was there. Gervon Dexter, senior. He's a 21-year-old young player, just a third-year junior. A little late to football. He played football growing up, but he was mostly a basketball guy. He didn't fully commit to football until his junior year in high school. 6'5", 310. I mean, big dude. Played a lot of nose tackle for Florida, a little bit out of position. I mean, he's a guy you want using that leverage, using that length that he offers, and he plays with terrific body control. What we saw at Florida was good, but he has yet to play his best football. I mean, once the coaches get their hands on a guy like this, you can really tap into more that he has to offer. So this is an ascending player that I feel like you're getting. You're kind of buying low, hoping that he can reach his potential. Because this is a guy we thought coming into the year, maybe he could even be a first-round pick because he has the talent. He's a former 5-star guy. It's just a matter of getting there, and didn't quite get there this year, but you feel like he has it in him.
It's interesting. I think we're all kind of in a similar spot here when you think about the defensive line, and you think about it's interesting. So we're picking at 74, and then again in the third round at 98. Last year at 78, we took a defensive end, Alex Wright. Just in terms of just general talent and where they stack up, where would Wright fit in with where the defensive end specifically talent would line up in this year's draft?
Probably pretty similar,
Okay.
in that mid third. We know pass rushers, they always go, right? Everyone needs them. Everyone wants a pass rusher. It doesn't matter if it's a project or a polished guy. I mean, you want pass rushers, add them to the mix, add them to the rotation. This year it's not going to be any different. We're going to see these guys come off the board quickly in the first round, second round, third round. And I think he'd probably still be in that third-round mix, and a guy that you're optimistic for the future and what he could be, and really long player, young, still learning, and so I think you're looking for that jump in year 2 from Alex Wright, and if you're still looking for more defensive line help, this is a draft where it's a strong group, and I had him taking Yaya Diaby with that second, third rounder. Diaby. Little older, we know that kind of goes against what the Browns usually do, but the Browns might have to compromise a little bit. This is an older draft class when you factor in the COVID year and a lot of there's just not as many underclassmen came out this year. It's a little bit of an older class, and so you have to compromise a little bit. But Diaby's a guy that, even though he is a little bit older, already 23 years old, his football development is still pretty young. He is a guy that after high school, he was working at the airport. He was not sure what his future held. Was able to get a try on at a local JUCO, and next thing you know, he's at Louisville, and he got better and better every single year. Had a 1.51 10-yard split at the combine. It's remarkable. I mean, that's corner back time for a 10-yard split, and he did it at 265 pounds. So this is a guy you just when it comes to defensive linemen and pass rushers, just keep adding these guys to the mix. Add them to the rotation. You drafted a couple last year. I fully expect them to draft a few more this year.
All right, I want to ask a similar question to what you asked about Alex Wright, but go back. You mentioned the receivers early, and then I'll follow up into a different position and a different potential path for the Browns in that third round. But what was your grade on Elijah Moore coming out, and where would that have ranked in this year's wide receiver class?
I was a big fan of Elijah Moore. I mean, he was just a guy you wanted to get the ball in his hands, right? I mean, just let him create, let him go make something happen. I mean, he was the engine of that Ole Miss offense, that Lane Kiffin offense. Just kind of feed him and see what happens. So I definitely applaud the Browns for going out and getting him for the price that they did. I know he didn't show a ton with the Jets. And he's a certain type of player. He's undersized. He's 5'9.5", right around 180 pounds. But he's a guy that you manufacture ways to get him the football, because his ability to use that speed. He's a 4.3 athlete, but he understands more so than just like the pure speed aspect. He understands how to use his gears, so he can throttle up, throttle down, get defenders off balance, throw off those angles. He's very, with his routes, he's very controlled, but he's very urgent with the way he moves out there. So he gets where he's going quickly, but he's always under control. And you see that with him. That was a common theme. So, he might not be the most well-rounded receiver in terms of, down the field and working the intermediate part of the field and all that, but he is athletic. I think, as an underneath route runner, he's above average. And he could just be that flexible chess piece where, you can use him across the formation, use him in the backfield, make the defense account for him on every snap. I think that's what he brings to your offense.
Would he have been, based on where you would it be like him and Jackson Smith and Jigba, would they have been the top receivers in this draft for you?
He would be probably in that mix with, like a Zay Flower. Zay Flowers offers probably a little bit more as a 3-level threat.
Size, yeah.
But this is such a a weird wide receiver class because all these guys are a little bit different. They're all in that late first, early second. It just depends on the type of receiver that you want, because what he offers is Elijah Moore offers is a little bit different than Jackson Smith and Jigba, a little bit different than Zay Flowers. But I think, he would be somewhere in that mix of, right there with Zay Flowers and Smith and Jigba, Jordan Addison. I think different teams would stack them just a little bit differently, but they'd all be in the same type of bucket.
All right. And this is obviously based on nothing, but I've gotten in my mind, Kareem Hunt has moved on. Dearness Johnson has moved on. You've got Nick Chubb and you've got Jerome Ford. And obviously you need to start thinking about this year as well as the future, right? With the running back position, it's just the nature of the beast. And I think we all were very impressed with what we saw from Jerome Ford last year. And he's the early favorite to be the backup. But if the Browns were to go into the third round and select a running back that could be the running back, backup now, but also the running back of the future, there are a couple guys that I keep feeling like might be good fits. I'm curious to get your take on it. One would be Tank Bigsby, and then the other, Roschon Johnson out of Texas. Big, strong guys, and I know Bigsby great in a zone scheme at Auburn. What do you think of those guys, and what do you think of that idea the Browns could maybe go running back there in the third round and the quality of talent in that third round that would be available to them?
If Bijan Robinson, he's going to go in the first, obviously, but one of the reasons why it's tough to project where he's going to go is I think a lot of teams look at the depth of this running back class and they say, we love Bijan, but, let's get our tackle here, or let's get our corner here. And, we feel good about the running back third round, fourth round, fifth round. So, I think the Browns, obviously if they take, a running back with that first pick, that I think fans would be, they would meet that with a little bit of a mixed reaction. But I think that, the way they want to run the football, I can understand if they want to add a running back at some point during the draft. And we're going to see a run on these guys in the third round. Tyjae Spears from Tulane will be off the board somewhere in there. And the two guys you mentioned are right there as well. Tank Bigsby from Auburn at 5'11 and a half, 210 pounds. Watching that Auburn offense, it felt like Bigsby felt like he had to do everything because he wasn't getting the blocking up front. The passing game was non-existent. It was all on Bigsby to go make a play. And so, I think that his best football is ahead of him once he gets into an offense where he actually has some talent around him to go create, go make plays. For a bigger back, he runs with speed. He's, as a receiver, he showed that he can be a capable screen guy. He can fit, what the Browns expect of their running backs. So the natural power, the body control, the balance, love that from Tank Bigsby. Roschon Johnson, he's quote unquote the other back from Texas, but he's very much in that top 100 discussion as a player that teams have their eye on as being a playmaker in the NFL. He's a former quarterback, 6 foot, 220 pounds, big guy, physical, character's off the charts. And one thing you love about Roschon Johnson is he's going to step in from day one, make an impact on special teams as a gunner, be a 4-core special teamer, be great for your locker room. And then whatever you ask of him, you want him to run the Wildcat, you want him to run routes, he will do whatever you want. He is the quintessential backup running back, reliable, dependable, and versatile, so he can do everything across the board. So I could certainly understand why a team like the Browns could be interested in Roschon Johnson there in the third.
Talking to the great Dane Brugler of The Athletic. He's joining us on the Twisted Tea Hotline, brought to you by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of the Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. I'm looking at your 7-round mock for us, and I think some of these things are things that we talk about too. We talk about slot corners, and is that a position? We talked about the defensive line. We haven't talked about safety. Let's stay with corner though, just for a second. I see Jamie Robinson out of Florida State. You have in the 4th round, and then you have Jacorian Bennett, the corner out of Maryland. Those two guys specifically, and of course, to your point, like you got to know what's going to happen in the previous 125 picks. But if it is those two guys, give me a little bit on both of them, and then those positions at that point in the draft. What are you looking at?
Yeah, Jamie Robinson, he is kind of that nickel where he gives you a little bit of versatility where he can play the post, can play the nickel, a little undersized. He's 5'10 and a half, 190 pounds. And love Brian Branch out of Alabama. He's the best safety / nickel DB in this draft, and he's going to go somewhere in the first round. Jamie Robinson's kind of the third or fourth round version of that, where not the biggest, not the fastest, ran in the 4.5s at the combine, but he plays with his hair on fire. He gets where he's going in a hurry. He reacts with just a tremendous quickness. You want, especially in the secondary, you want quick reaction players. They're not guessing. They're not thinking too much. They are reading, reacting, and going and making plays, and that's what Jamie Robinson does. He can do it from depth. He can do it as more of a nickel. He can do all these different things that you're looking for in your secondary, a versatile piece. And so I think Robinson's a guy. If he's there in the fourth round, certainly make a lot of sense. And then I had him thinking Jacorian Bennett, who you want to add depth to the cornerback room. I know they've got a pretty good room right now, but you add a guy like Jacorian Bennett on day 3. Not the biggest guy, just under 5'11", under 190 pounds, but you love the speed, you love the toughness, you love his ability to get his hands on the football. Over the last 2 years, 29 passes defended combined. So a guy that is right place, right time. Maryland, they had a few of these corners. Deonte Banks is going to be a first rounder. Jacorian Bennett belongs somewhere in the first 4 or 5 rounds. Maryland's pumping those guys out. So, you're trying to build depth on that side of the ball. You can do a lot worse than Jacorian Bennett at that point in the draft.
Talking with the great Dane Brugler, the draft guru from The Athletic, and, of course, the Beast is available. I'm scrolling through it right now as we're talking to him. You just put out a 7-round mock as well. 4th-round pick. We haven't talked about it yet, but you have a quarterback for the Browns, and it makes sense with this roster that they would like to find a backup quarterback, a long-term backup to Deshaun Watson on a rookie contract. I mean, I think that's someplace that you're going to be looking to save some costs there. Talk to me about some of the quarterback options there. You picked Haener out of Fresno State from Danville, near my hometown. A little undersized, but very productive guy at Fresno State. And then I've also the name that's been the Browns, I guess, have had for a visit, according to reports, Clayton Tune out of Houston. But just talk to me about some of these quarterbacks in here and who you think kind of makes sense for the Browns in this scheme.
Yeah, this is I think a pretty good group of quarterbacks on day 3, guys that you can expect to come in and really compete for that backup job. And, I think something that fans don't realize, most fans, is that quarterback 2 position, how important that is. If you're just going to rank the positions on a roster, quarterback 2 probably gets ahead of some of the starting positions. It's so critical to have that guy. If your starter goes down, you're not going to miss a beat. A guy's going to be able to come in and at least keep you in games, give you a chance to win. And it's not just that, but also between games, during practice, during meetings, having a guy in that room that's helping your starter, that's helping prepare the game plan, getting ready for opponents. And to me, Jake Haener is the exact guy that I would be targeting to fill that role. Like you mentioned, he's a little undersized. He's 5'11 and a half, 210 pounds. In a lot of ways, he's almost the West Coast version of Bryce Young, because he is undersized but tough as nails. The intangibles that he brings off the charts, really, really smart guy, the way he processes, the way he reads the field, and he makes plays happen. I keep going back to that UCLA game, not this past year, the year before, where he put that Fresno State offense on his back and led them to a come-from-behind win in overtime against the Bruins. Just a heroic performance from him, and Haener's used to doing that. That's what he's always been doing. And so, if I'm in the 4th round and backup quarterback is important to me, Haener would definitely be one of my targets there. Him, Aiden O'Connell from Purdue, also in that mix, a guy that you think could be a quality backup, spot starter. And I like Clayton Tune as well out of Houston, 6'2.5", 220 pounds, a guy that was really accurate. And what you love about Tune is late in games. Think about the opener this year against UTSA, where it doesn't matter what the scoreboard says, how much time's left on the clock. He plays with ice water. I mean, he's going out there and making plays with his legs when he has to, making plays with his arms. So good-sized athlete with enough functional ability that he can be a backup, and then if he needs to see the field, he can do that as well. And so this is a pretty decent year if you're looking for that backup quarterback somewhere in those middle rounds.
Dane, you're the best, buddy. Thank you so much for your time.
So good.
No, happy to do it. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, the great Dane Brugler.
The command is just
it's amazing. I mean, he's talking about
off the charts.
A quarterback from Fresno State has coming to us in the fourth round, who's talking about his UCLA game from 2 years ago.
And also, you could find out from his notes that he puts together. Everybody's also a scratch golfer, so he'd instantly be the best golfer on the team.
It's infinite. You versus him.
Bring it on, Hainer.
Let's do
it.
From
Danville. Danville's a very nice part of the Bay Area.
Oh, there you go. Some
Quite
institutional knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. Doing just fine.
You can log on to theathletic.com today to get your copy of The Beast. And, of course, he did a full 7-round mock, which is such an impossible task to take on. But Dane did it because, of course, he did. We will go around the league coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Be part of one of the most passionate fan bases in the NFL. Join the Brown season ticket member waitlist today for the best chance securing tickets for all home games and future seasons. Don't miss out. Go to clevelandbrowns.com/tickets or call 440-891-5050 to reserve your spot today. As we go around the league, Ian Rappaport reporting that the 49ers have received inquiries from several teams looking at potential trade for quarterback Trey Lance. Reiterates that the 49ers are fielding calls, not making them. Okay, why? I'm always interested in these reports. Why is this public? You're on. Why is this public? How does this get to Rappaport? How does it get out? Who in the 49ers organization would put this out?
That's right. That's the answer. The 49ers. The way that it is worded,
Yeah.
we're not making calls. We're fielding them. So if you're interested in Trey Lance, you better get on it because people are already calling. Not us. This has nothing to do with, this is totally from the 49ers.
So you think they're ready to punt on Lance?
It feels like they want.
I don't know any other read.
Yes. The read is they want to punt and they want to get something good for him because they got Brock Purdy and they're going to roll with Purdy and figure something else out.
We have Darnold.
I mean, I don't think in 3 days they can be like, yeah, Sam Darnold's fine. But I just think that.
But I mean, Purdy's coming off a big injury.
Yeah.
Didn't they give? I mean, that's like a borderline. If they weren't so damn competent at winning football games, it's a borderline fireable offense. The Lance miss.
Okay.
It's like 3 1s, isn't it?
All right. So Trey Lance trade.
And they didn't even have to do any of it. They could have just stayed. We could have just taken Mac Jones if they didn't like Fields.
Yep. Let's see. That was what, 2021?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Maybe I had that hot seat wrong all these years. Maybe it should have been their GM.
Lynch?
Yeah.
They gave up 3 first-round picks. I want to find that trading picks. Okay, here we go. Here it is. You're going to like this. All right. So they gave up 12th overall, which could they not have? Where did Fields get drafted? Pull up the 20.
I'm pulling it up right now.
right.
I want to say he was around there.
That pick, after they dealt the pick to Miami, which was, so they could have been at 6th overall. They were at 6th overall. So
they went up to 6?
They were at 6 and went to 3.
So they traded with the Chargers? The Chargers picked Herbert at 6.
So the 49ers 2021 choice changed.
Oh, no,
two
it's
more
the
times.
2021 draft,
Yeah,
not the 2020. 2020, my fault.
No, you're good.
All right, hold on. Hold, please. All right, so
So listen to this. This is going to make you go crazy.
I got it here.
So if they stayed at, they had that year, they had 6, and they also had 29 overall, which was their real pick. They had 6 from some other trade, so they had 6 and 29. They trade 6 and 29, and then the one the next year for Lance. If they just stayed at 6, they could have taken Fields, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just for perspective, Jalen Waddle went 6.
Right.
In this
Parsons
draft.
went 12, which is where their pick got traded. The
Parsons
Dolphins
went
traded
12.
to the Cowboys.
Fields went 11.
So they could have taken Fields at 6, done nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Pick
And
number,
kept 29.
which was the pick that was used to trade for Tyreek Hill.
That's right.
That to me, and then the 20, and then it's this year's first round pick, 2023. So they traded 2 in 2021 and then 1 in 2023. So they could have had. Oh, that's right. Sorry. The other pick was traded by the Dolphins to the Broncos for Bradley Chubb. So they could have had Fields, Bradley Chubb, and Tyreek Hill for Trey Lance.
Gosh. I mean, it's fireable.
Well, not when you keep winning.
But you keep winning
They
despite
went to the
it, so
NFC
you can-
Championship game.
No, I understand, but it's just a stunning level of malfeasance. Of you blew it, boy.
Forget the Chubb part of it. You could have just had your pick this year, and then you could have had
Right.
Tyreek Hill and Fields. So you'd have Debo, Tyreek Hill, Ayuk, Kittle, with Garoppolo and Fields.
Yeah. That feels like that'd be okay.
I mean,
He saw something. They saw something in Lance.
he loved Lance.
And obviously they clearly, but like they don't now. Like to the point where that they don't want to.
Well, you see
even-
potential, and then potential becomes reality, and reality sometimes is not what you were hoping for.
Yeah, that's wild. Absolutely wild. A deal we talked about yesterday, Allen Robinson to the Steelers. Steelers get Robinson and a 7th rounder. Rams get a 7th. The Rams pay $10 million of Robinson's salary. Pittsburgh pays the rest of the $5 million. Speaking of the Rams, a look at their roster from Schefter. Rams' only quarterback under contract is Stafford. Team currently does not have a kicker, punter, long snapper in their roster.
Matt Gay's gone, the Pro Bowler.
Is there still a chance they move Stafford? I know it's
why
late.
not?
Why would you not move him?
Why not? I don't know why you wouldn't.
Why would he want to play on this team?
I think you have to move him.
Yeah. I mean, I think about Atlanta. He played collegiately at Georgia. Is that a spot? What about Houston? If Houston's trying to fast track,
because the division's there. I mean,
the division's there for them. He's a Dallas kid.
Yeah,
but I'm sure Jarrah would do it if he could find a way to get a hold of Stafford. I know he coveted him when he was with the Lions, but if you're the Rams, I see absolutely no point in hanging on to Matthew Stafford.
Me neither, because it
makes no sense. Why would you have him play on a team that's going nowhere?
Agreed.
Absolutely
fair question. By the way, let me say this to you.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard this? This is Dove Kleiman.
Oh, that guy. Or is it a bot? Did we ever figure out?
No, he's a real person. Yeah, he lives in Israel and he aggregates, and that's what he does.
That's the whole operation. He makes it financially because the amount of followers he has on Twitter.
I guess.
Is that the deal?
He's doing fine.
Yeah.
He's doing fine. But he was, again, his reports are basically other people's reports or something that he saw. So
he must just comb constantly because he's usually among the first with stuff.
Brady Quinn is doing an interview with two people. I'm not sure who, but according to Brady Quinn in this interview, which he has the clip where the audio of what I'm saying now, he said C.J. Stroud made a commitment to the Manning Passing Academy, but the night before he ghosted them and didn't show up. When you do that, that's going to set up alarms for people. That's a quote. He noted that as one of the 3 concerns with C.J. Stroud, and said maybe it's a smokescreen, but he said that's what he's hearing right now, is that he made a
Brady Quinn saying this?
Brady Quinn said C.J. Stroud made a commitment to the Manning Passing Academy, but the night before he ghosted them and didn't show up. I just got you some stuff for tomorrow.
Well, I'm just going to see if that's true.
There you go.
I'll get you an answer on that.
So anyway, that's
interesting.
It is an interesting thing, and one of those interesting things that just shows up out of nowhere right before the draft. And by the way, I mean, I guess I could see why that's relevant, but I also struggle to see why that's relevant to whether or not he's going to be your franchise quarterback as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Because what are the circumstances behind that?
And who knows if it's even true?
Yeah, who knows if it's true? All right, I'm working on that. I'll see if there's any validity to that. Speaking of C.J. Stroud meeting with the Falcons, who don't pick until 8. Anthony Richardson meeting with the Ravens. Richardson feels like a guy where it's got to be a spot where that's that nurture thing, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be a spot where you can be patient, give it some time, and see what kind of happens there.
Yeah, and that's why I think that he's a guy that makes a lot of sense to me to go. If Detroit were going to swing, I think they're going to take a corner there. It makes sense, but
Seattle
would be a great spot. Detroit would be a great spot. I think Indianapolis feels a little risky, but
there would just be so much pressure to play him right away.
Yes.
There.
Yep.
Instead of letting him hang a little bit. We'll continue our tour around the NFL. We will head to Nashville to take a visit with the Titans. Bottom of the hour, Teresa Walker will join us on the Titans and their offseason. That is coming up next. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. Brought to you by Bellybet. Coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Teresa Walker going to join us at the bottom of this hour on the Tennessee Titans and where that organization is heading. Before we do that, though, let's take a look at the Tennessee Titans through the fun of the categories. Let's start with their uniforms. Keep change. If change, what variation? They changed a couple years ago to a blue helmet from the white helmet that they had for a long time.
Bottom line, since they own the Houston Oilers uniforms, one, give them back to Houston.
That's the right thing, yeah.
That's the right thing to do. If you're not, wear them.
Yeah, just wear those and just put the T on the helmet instead of the oil derrick if you want.
And just wear those. Because did they wear them? Chris Johnson, I remember, wore them.
They
did
wore
the
them.
AFL.
They wore them as their primary when Eddie George was there at the beginning when they were in Memphis. Remember, they played at the Liberty Bowl in the beginning because there was not a football stadium.
Miracle.
They were not in Nashville at the beginning. The first year or two, they played in Memphis at the Liberty Bowl because it was the only NFL stadium in Tennessee.
Yeah, they wore these unis, and then for a while they wore the blue Oiler lid.
Right, which are gorgeous too. That's all gorgeous. But for whatever reason, they like the navy. They have a little bit of the blue still in it. I've always thought their uniforms were largely trash.
Awful.
I think they're a mismatch. Bunch of nonsense, like 90s. They always feel dated.
Yep.
Even when they redid the new ones, they felt like so locked in a mid to late 90s world.
Totally.
Odd piping and just weird. They've never been good.
Totally.
I don't even know what one I would call my favorite. I guess when they were, like when Eddie was there, it seemed like they had a white one with a blue pant that was pretty good with a white hat. But I don't know what they wear now that I would consider great.
Yeah, they had at the beginning, but those had the weird.
That had a
the
weird
shoulders
thing.
were different colors than the body of the jersey, even like the Air McNair, Eddie George ones you were talking about.
Yeah, there's none of them are good.
No, they really have not had any good ones. And then you go and look at the 1997, 1998 Tennessee Oilers, and they're great. Just put that. Once they went to the Titans, remember the whole top and sleeves, the shoulders and sleeves all the way down were baby blue. The chest was either white or navy, and then the pants were opposite that. Those are just not good uniforms.
No.
And they've never been good. In 2009, that must have been when Chris Johnson, when they also wore the throwbacks, but instead of wearing the white Oilers helmets, they wore a blue Oilers helmet.
I don't understand it.
That was in 2009, and that's
a good look.
That's not a bad one here.
But that's a Houston uniform,
Right.
right?
So just put the T there instead of that.
Right. They for some reason they've got is it wings on the T?
They're obsessed with that T.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which looks like a tack.
It does
It's just a weird. I don't understand it. I have no idea what they're
I think
doing.
they have some of the worst uniforms in the NFL.
I agree, and they have good colors. Like just have a cohesive design that makes a little bit of sense.
Yep.
And they never have. I don't know. It's the damnedest thing. We handle what would I do to fix them? We told you.
We just did.
Just wear one of the Oilers types. Just put the T on it if you want. But the right thing to do would be to give the Oilers back their uniforms. That's the way to do that.
Yep.
Stadium. Same place from the beginning, right? It's still Adelphi. It's right there. But they're getting a new one. And they're going to do the savvy thing, and they're going to put the dome on it so that they can host everything in the world.
Yep.
They're going to have the rollout carpet with all of that, rollout grass. They're going to do that whole operation. So their prototype is pretty cool, what they're going to do there.
I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be great. And their
How
current
is
stadium
this
was
place?
fine.
Is it fine?
Fine. When you say fine, Gibbe?
It's right near down. It's right
near
in
downtown. It's in downtown.
I like it. It's a nice stadium. The fans are on top.
On top of you.
Like it's a good view.
Yeah.
From the booth. It's a great stadium. The biggest thing is you got to pace yourself. If you're there, you got to remind yourself maybe multiple times that it is a business trip.
Oh, in terms
night
of the
before
fun
a
it's
game.
had. Yeah. It's a good town.
The night can get away from you pretty quickly.
Which leads us to road trip. Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's a
Absolutely.
must.
Direct flights. You could drive it if you wanted to.
Food,
all
bars,
sorts of food,
music,
restaurants,
all of it.
hotels. It's getting bigger and bigger. I mean, I think there's a Four Seasons and a St. Regis in Nashville now. Like it's taken a whole nother level if you're into that. But yeah, it checks every box. It's probably, is it the biggest boomtown city in this country in the last decade?
That or Austin, yeah.
Those are the two that
Those are
have
the two.
exploded.
Yeah, it's.
But even when I was in the 20 years ago when I was in the South, everybody in the South moved to Atlanta at that point. Now
Yeah.
I feel like everybody's gone to Nashville.
Yeah.
Is what it seems like.
Yeah.
And it's pretty wild because Nashville, it's in the hills. So it's hard to
You just kind of
hard to
stumble
expand
into
it.
it. If
Kinda
you're
get into it,
driving,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
you literally just weave and come over a hill, and you're like, oh,
here we go.
there's
Here's a
Nashville.
town. Yeah. Must-do thing on a road trip. Live music anywhere. Husk is there. Fantastic restaurant.
Yep.
But I would think
Kane Prime.
any live music would
Yeah, live
is a
music.
win.
Just get onto Broadway Street. Got to do it.
I mean, the last 2 times we played there, the Buckeyes were playing on Saturday night. We found a Buckeye backer
course.
bar, and it
Yeah.
got sideways. Maybe one of the few times that I was like, is the crew going to be able to get up in the morning? Are we going to be able to do this? We're going to be able, because that's the problem. It's that stupid 1 hour time difference. So we kick at noon.
That's true. Yeah, the 1 hour
that is-
That's the worst.
The worst.
Yeah. Player on their current roster you would want here.
I'm thinking Kevin
Byard is the name I thought
Yep,
of.
the 2-time first-team All-Pro, free safety amongst the league leaders in interceptions every year. There really isn't a weapon that you would say. You know, Treylon Burks is interesting, but certainly far from proven, and not somebody that you would be jumping in over what you currently have. The other guy, I got another one for you, Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah,
Jeffrey
that'd be a good
Simmons,
one.
7.5 sacks, defensive tackle. Like
He
we
just get an
I think our
extension?
safeties are pretty
Yeah.
good. Yeah, but this is our fantasy world. We can take
Yeah,
anybody
no.
we want
I'm
off
just
the
saying, like he
Yeah.
just got an extension.
Simmons
from
got an
him.
extension,
Yeah,
Yeah.
two-time Pro Bowler. He was the guy I remember doing that draft, and we're like, somebody's going to take him, and he's going to be an
gonna be
absolute
great,
monster. And he's got 16 sacks the last 2 seasons.
Yeah,
that,
he's a beast.
That might
like
be
if
the
you put
answer.
him on at defensive tackle at the other defensive tackle, that's terrifying.
Second-team All-Pro.
Yeah.
I think our back end is
That's-
good enough.
it's
I
good
would
enough.
rather have him.
No
Jeffrey
problem with
Simmons.
it. I have no problem with it. Playoff team.
No.
I mean, they could be.
No.
It's the AFC South.
No.
It's,
I think
the only
with
thing
Vrabel,
is
anything's
No.
possible.
they'll
No.
play hard for him. I agree. I mean, they're past their window, obviously, but I could see it's not beyond Jacksonville stumbling. I don't think Jacksonville's stumble-proof yet.
You
Just
want to
'cause of how
crown him,
young
crown
they are.
him.
Crown him, yeah. Biggest off-season addition or loss? I can't think of
I mean,
anything.
the fact that Tannehill is still under contract there.
I'll tell you this.
They're kind of stuck in the middle, man. That team.
If they trade Derrick Henry, which is rumored, that will be their biggest change.
Where's the landing? Is it Buffalo?
I don't know. Supposedly he and Dalvin Cook are on the move, and I read that right now the Bengals are trying to. The reason they haven't released
Mixon?
is they're trying to get him to take a pay cut.
Okay. Where's the landing spot for Henry that makes sense?
I don't know. Let's see. It doesn't look like they've made really any major moves, the Titans. I'm looking right now.
I mean, their biggest thing that they did this offseason is they fired the general manager, and Mike Vrabel's running the ship.
Yeah.
That's the
The big question is,
he's
do
the
they,
boss.
are they one of those teams that draft night makes a move?
I think that, I mean, they seem to love Vrabel down there, and it feels like that they could go to the bottom if they wanted to. They could.
Yeah. They could be real bad.
Yeah, because Malik Willis is there, but, that was pretty brutal.
It's fun when we're doing these things, the ability to see which teams actually have a coverage. Like some teams you could click and say Seattle Seahawks offseason moves, and you get a list of absolutely everybody that was on their team that signed somewhere else, people who were on their team that are free agents and are unsigned, who they re-signed, who they brought in, who they traded, all of it. And then a lot of teams have absolutely nothing, like the Titans. I have not been able to find really anything. So I'm looking through. This is a Sporting News grade for them. And they were, I think, just not very active so far because they are 26 key additions. Left tackle Andre Dillard, edge Arden Key, linebacker Azeez Al-Shahir, who was with the Niners, cornerback Sean Murphy-Bunting. They lost Taylor Lewan, center Ben Jones, Robert Woods, Bud Dupree, their kicker Randy Bullock, their guard Nate Davis, defensive tackle DeMarcus Walker.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why Tannehill's still there. I don't know why Henry's still there.
Yeah.
We'll ask Teresa Walker about this. She will know why all of that is still the case. She'll join us coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. For a team of injury lawyers dedicated to every client every day, call 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Elk & Elk's proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Our off-season tour continues with a visit to Nashville to talk a little bit of the Titans. Teresa Walker from the Associated Press joining us on the Twisted Tea Hotline, brought to you by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it Twisted Cleveland. Teresa, thank you so much for taking the time. Let's just start here with a simple one that might elicit a complicated answer. What exactly are the Tennessee Titans?
Well, that's the question we all kind of want to know. I mean, we have a new GM. We have Mike Vrabel. And under Mike Vrabel, since he was hired as coach, they've essentially been competitive in the AFC South. They were 3 minutes away from a third straight division title, despite, using the NFL's most players for a second straight season because of injuries. And so it's like, that's the one thing. We may not get access to Rand Carthon or Mike Vrabel until maybe Monday. To talk about the draft, but let's put it this way. I don't expect any hard answers because, let's face it, a year ago, the former GM kind of hinted that he, didn't foresee a trade of A.J. Brown before draft night. Well, guess what? He wasn't traded until after the draft had started in the first round. Rand Carthon's the first-time GM. We don't know. Is he looking to the future? Are they trying to rebuild, reload on the fly? We don't. Are they going to look for a quarter? I mean, it's easy to look at Ryan Tannehill in the final year of his deal and say, oh, they've got to go get a quarterback. I mean, Ryan Tannehill's got a $36.6 million cap hit this year. But then you look at the other quarterbacks who are suddenly getting big money, and you're like, So at this point, anyone who says they know what the Titans are going to do with the 11th pick overall, they're guessing.
When you look at this Titans team, one that had been a playoff team, one that had been built on strong defense, Tannehill making plays, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown. Now there are rumors that maybe Derrick Henry's not going to be playing for the Titans this year. What is this team, and do you think this is a team that is going to – it's hard to imagine it not being true with Mike Vrabel, but is this a team that is seriously trying to compete in 2023?
Well, the one thing we have, that's the thing. We, given Mike Vrabel's history, the head, I tend to lean yes, because guess what? In the AFC South, Jaguars won that title last year, but they had to go on a heck of a run, and as tremendous as Trevor Lawrence looked down the stretch, and Doug Peterson, talk about riding a ship that. I mean, it was like a Poseidon adventure. Kids look up that reference. I mean, that boat was not only upside down, it was sinking to the bottom of the floor, and he got them to the AFC South title. So things are looking up there. But, the other two AFC South teams, Texans and the Colts, they've got to find a quarterback. They've got first-year coaches. So, Mike Vrabel, if they can make the right moves with the new GM, Rand Carthon, you could think about maybe reloading a bit. They did just re-ink Jeffrey Simmons to an extension 4 years. So they've got him now under contract for a bit. He's happy and content. And you've got a lot of pieces on your defense back. A big reason I think that people are looking at Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, they're in the final years of their deal. Derrick Henry will be 30 in January, and traditional NFL logic says when a running back hits 30, he collapses. Well, I'm going to say this: two things. Derrick Henry he was not the primary ball carrier the instant he arrived on campus at Alabama.
No.
He sat behind DeMarco Murray when he arrived at the Titans with their third pick in the second round in 2016, and didn't become the starter until late that second season. So to me, there's a lot more tread on the tires. And when you look at, he was second in the league in rushing this last season, behind, calling the Titans offensive line patchwork would be calling it patchwork is being kind. So he made a lot of something out of nothing. And, to me, the Titans' biggest priorities this offseason and in this draft, and they've addressed some of that in free agency. Andre Dillard, Daniel Brunskill for the offensive line. But, if you can get some more help to help improve that offensive line, and they're going to have a new position coach there, get some more help at the skill position receivers. They cut Robert Woods, even though he led the team in catches and receptions last year. Let's just put it this way. It was a very quiet kind of performance by Robert Woods. They've got Traylon Burks, who they got with the pick that they traded for, got from Philadelphia for A.J. Brown. But the challenge is this. it doesn't matter who the quarterback is and who is the running back unless they fix those two positions. So, that's why I'm thinking one, maybe they get through the draft, maybe they extend them for a year or so, stretch out the cap a little bit, give them a little space. They're projected to have tons of room next year. So that kind of a deal would be doable. And maybe they just end up buying themselves some time and try to reload on the fly, kind of do a NASCAR pit stop, so to speak.
Teresa, the thing that is so interesting over the last 5 to 10 years in the league is that the middle class has shrunk, right? It feels like NFL teams are viewing it more like, all right, can we go win the Super Bowl? And if we can't, then you try to go to the bottom and try to hit the lottery like the Bengals did with Joe Burrow and get a guy that way and instantly become a contender again with a couple of great drafts. The Titans, to me, from 30,000 feet, feel like a middle-class team in the sense that I cannot see a scenario how they get out of this AFC and win the Super Bowl. And, in fact, it feels like they're heading further away from that than they were 2 or 3 years ago. Conversely, they're almost too good as currently constructed. They definitely are too good as currently constructed to go to the bottom. So, I guess knowing Mike from his time at Ohio State, I don't know if he would even sign up for that. And yet maybe to me, you talked about the cap space in a couple of years, maybe that seems like the most logical thing to get something for Derrick Henry now while he still has value.
Well, but that's the thing, guys. I mean, when we're talking value, number 2 running rusher in the NFL, as opposed to what are you going to get? You're not going to get anything higher than a 4th-round pick. Now, granted, they don't have a 4th-round pick this year. They only have 6 picks. So that's why I'd love to see them trade back, if at all possible, in that first round out of 11 to get more picks. So, and they did draft a young man out of Michigan last year. But then you're gambling that he can step in and fill that spot. I will point out that when Derrick Henry missed 9 games, broken foot, Titans went 12-5 with Ryan Tannehill still at quarterback and the AFC's number 1 seed until the injuries just absolutely caught up to them. And 3 interceptions in the loss to Cincinnati, the eventual AFC champs. Last year, Ryan Tannehill had injuries, missed 5 games because of an ankle. And and Derrick Henry was available for all but 1 game. And again, second in the NFL in rushing. Guess what happened? The Titans lost their last 7 games and finished out of the playoffs, snapping a 3 or 4 year straight streak. So you can make the argument that maybe it is time to go ahead and unload Derrick Henry and try to get a draft pick. But you've got some proven production, a guy who's been a key leader for your team. And if you've seen his workout videos, you know that there's probably no one in the league that works harder than Derrick Henry, as opposed to, taking a chance, adding a pick, and gambling on what you could get with the new regime. And when I point out new regime, there's been a couple people added to the front office. It's not like, Rand Carthon has had a chance to come in, and he talked last week at Jeffrey Simmons, and talked about his new deal, that he's been getting up to speed with the people here in Tennessee. So that's the challenge. Do they suddenly, yank the wheel and go a different direction? That's what we just don't know. Are they and do they want the picks? Does he trust who they could get? That's going to be the challenge, and that's what we just don't know at this point. So, and again, I'll say this. I also cover the Nashville Predators. David Poile was probably the best in the NHL at holding his cards to the vest. Well, guess what? Rand Carthon has no track record as a GM. And, if there's a tiebreaker, everyone's wondering, is it going to be Mike Vrabel that breaks that tie? Is it Amy Adams Strunk, the controlling owner? We're going to have to kind of stay tuned to see what happens here. And I wish I could be more concrete on this, but, yes. I mean, right now, every scenario has been mentioned, and every scenario, honestly, is possible. I mean, Eddie George did not finish his career as a Tennessee Titan. Chris Johnson, one of the 8 men to run for 2,000 yards, did not finish his career as a Tennessee Titan. So I would not be stunned if they made a trade getting rid of Derrick Henry, despite him being, yet again, one of 8 2,000-yard rushers, and the second leading rusher in the league last year.
Maybe this is something that might have a more concrete answer, and he is young in his career, certainly, but Malik Willis, is there any belief that he can become the quarterback of this team after what was a very, again, small sample size, but certainly not one that looked like he would be able to be a competent thrower of the football in the NFL?
Well, I know that Mike Vrabel said early this season, oh, yeah, he's working hard. And I did see improvement from him from the time he arrived at the rookie minicamp to the start of the season. The problem is, and he did win them a game in Houston where he was asked to throw the ball once in the entire second half,
right.
and I literally were carried by Derrick Henry. Now, the challenge is going to be this, you take that biggest jump between your first and second year. Again, this is a guy who finished his career at Liberty. And, if you're pinning your hopes on him, I mean, right now there's two quarterbacks on the roster. It's Ryan Tannehill and it's Malik Willis. And, they had to go out and get Josh Dobbs and turn the offense over to him to try to get them into the playoffs rather than Malik Willis, who they had all year long. So, if they were to, bring somebody else in to try to beat him out for the job, well, the one thing that Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon have both said, competition makes everybody better. So I am expecting them to get a quarterback. The only question is where and when.
Teresa, great stuff. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you giving us a little bit of it today.
My pleasure. Thank you all so much.
All right, that's Teresa Walker, the Associated Press on the Twisted Tea Hotline, brought to you by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. It feels like she's plugged in as you're going to get.
Yeah.
And it's
no clue.
Choose your own adventure time.
Yep.
In Tennessee.
Yep.
To me, they are the quintessential road to nowhere.
Listen.
Like, build more around Derrick Henry. You've already done that as good as you can do it when you had A.J. Brown. You did it to the point of being a team that people thought were close. You were in the AFC with Mahomes and Allen and Burrow. I mean, there's no roadmap, man.
We had this after week 1 of last year. They should have traded everybody that they could have and accumulated as many picks. Like, obviously, keep a Jeffrey Simmons, keep Bayard, keep guys that are young and productive, but you need to divest yourself of every asset that you can. And the Henry, Tannehill assets, like Tannehill's a guy that you throw him in an NFC team, send them both somewhere, and they could contend. They could be a playoff team in the NFC. But, yeah, it just
crazy.
We said it last year, but they obviously and almost made it in. They lose. They would have made it in. I think if they had won their final game, they'd have been 8-9 and somehow won the division. So not that impressed with them. I do think that that's a team that needs to completely rebuild. And I think that division, you're looking at it, Indy's kind of in a weird spot. Jacksonville's the most talented team. And I think Houston has a chance, if they get the quarterback right, to get good quickly.
If you're Tennessee and you tank for 1 year and you got a new stadium coming and you play in a city that a lot of people want to live in, a lot of NFL guys live there in the offseason regardless, and you accumulate some assets. Like when Teresa was like, well, yeah, that's a 4th-round pick. Well, yeah, but you're not doing anything with Derrick Henry anyway. So what's the point?
I'd give him a chance at this point in his career to play some meaningful football.
Hey, Gibbe, you're a Dookie. You remember Brian Davis?
Absolutely,
so
man.
Brian, have you seen this?
I've seen this.
So Brian Davis is allegedly – I don't even know where this came about. I think it's all nonsense. Yeah. It feels almost a little bit like Manti Te'o to me. So Brian Davis claims that he's putting together a $7 billion bid to usurp the Josh Harris bid for the Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
Okay? So he was on radio
in
DC this morning.
Reportedly, is this where Commanders owner passed him over and took less money?
Well, but I don't know that he has the money. I don't know if he has the money. He claims he does. So you're a smart guy. You went to private school. I'm going to read this to you. This was him on radio in Washington this morning. You tell me what this means. Because they did a Google search of his companies and nothing comes up. It all comes up empty. Here's what he says. They asked him, when we do a Google search of your companies, why do a bunch of shells but nothing? There's nothing on the web. What I did was I learned from the Durham experience. I'm married for 23 years, have 3 sons, 2 at Duke right now, and I learned from my past. I created special purchase vehicles for each deal and made them new companies. For this cash advancement, I created Urban Echo Energy so it wouldn't have a history. I didn't want my investors exposed to anything that happened years ago, so I've created about 9 different LLCs where I have 100% controlling interest so I can keep it simple, but I don't have a website or market. I've been focused on getting the capital in, and this is where I talked about intellectual property. That's my capacity to build a business model where investors can legitimately see how they get return on their investment over the years. It hasn't happened yet because I'm trying to develop something that has transformative impact. You're smarter than me. You tell me what that is, because that seems like word soup nonsense.
Nothing. Absolutely
I
nothing.
heard transformative, and I was like, "Ooh, transformative turkey."
And he right.
Someday,
That's
give it
that's
someday,
all I could.
someday.
That's what I pulled. From
And
that.
he needs to have 2.1 billion himself.
That's 8 sentences of nothing.
Correct. The big question then, the one they should have asked him is, do you have 2.1 billion of liquid
So
cash
they did.
yourself?
So he says, there's no end around for requirements. I have 100%. That means you can have other investors. These guys with the Magic Johnson Group have 20 different investors, so they have to do 20 different background checks. I have one investor, me. It's my money because I've sold my intellectual property. They are my partner because they don't want me to have the issues these guys will have with 20 different owners. This is my redemption song. I'm Hoops Bob Marley.
He sounds delusional. He sounds delusional.
I think you're better off going with a $6.5 billion offer.
I think if his answers,
I just don't
if
understand.
his answers gave you any kind of confidence, that's one thing. If he said, "Yeah, this
Yeah,
company,"
I mean, he
made this
never
money
answered-
here,
he never
I'm
answered the question.
My total assets are exactly because the answers are not.
I don't think
right.
they're there. So here's the one win, though. He does say, the name is something we would change, and I'd love to bring the uniforms back to the old staple and change the name back to something more positive. On the field, I know we have great coaches in regards to the team, so he gets that part right. But isn't that something?
I didn't put 2 and 2 together that was the same Brian
Oh
Davis.
yeah, because Florio ran an article on it and used a picture of him from Duke. It was like a Duke.
He was
basketball
on for
picture.
30 minutes in D.C.
It's wild.
30 minutes.
Well, even if he doesn't have the cachet, he's at least getting exposure for his businesses. I don't know what those are.
businesses? They're not
But he
businesses,
doesn't
they're
have
shells.
any. They're all shells. It's all LLCs, and according to him, you can't find anything in terms of what they are.
He doesn't
tangible.
make a business. He says it's intellectual property.
It's intellectual property. So he has access to $7 billion for the association to him.
Yeah, but he needs to have 2.1 himself to be the
Straight cash.
Yeah.
So much more to come. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Nice job out of the Cavs last night, as predicted, that would go that way. One more.
Got to get physical. It's all right.
The best part was that there was a stretch, I think it was in the second quarter as they stretched the lead out, where Julius Randle was trying to bully Jared Allen, and he missed a close shot, and then he ended up actually getting hurt on the back of his wrist or back of his arm into his elbow. And then they go down to the other end, and they run a high pick and roll, and Allen sets a bone-crushing screen on Jalen Brunson, and the Cavs scored. At that point, I'm like, you're safe. You're safe, pal.
And Garland was dominant and
he was aggressive.
He took
1 minute.
He was good.
Why are
Great.
the Knicks still keeping their starters in midway through the fourth quarter down
dumb.
23?
Allen.
Tibbs.
What about Allen on that?
Tibbs does.
You didn't learn anything
What about
from
Allen
the
on
guy
that
that's on
dunk
your
on
bench
Randall?
further down?
That's what he does. That's it. I mean, ask Derrick Rose.
Yeah,
Who's right
there
there?
he
You're
is.
making
Right there.
reference
2
to,
seats
yeah.
down?
He's on the bench.
Yeah. You just don't, yeah. I'll be curious, like the Lakers played Memphis tonight. They have one in the bag already. Like, do they have I think with LeBron, they'll have the focus to go up 2-0, especially if
30.
Ja's not playing. Like, that's what
Ja's
you
not
do.
playing. They've got to.
They got to strangle that. You got to strangle that stuff out. But that was a nice win for the Cavs last night.
Yeah, it's a great win.
Really blew that one out.
Take that, Screaming A. Back to New York.
There you go. There you go. The next level's coming up next. We're back tomorrow. Thanks for listening, everybody. Cleveland Runs Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.